Hospital indemnity is one of the easiest cross-sells in the entire insurance business, but only if you stop selling it as a product and start positioning it as a story. This training gives you the exact framing, the exact questions, and the exact language that turns a forgettable feature dump into a conversation clients actually want to have. Most agents botch hospital indemnity for one reason. They lead with what it is. They open with phrases like, "This is a supplemental policy that pays a fixed daily benefit," and the client's eyes glaze over. The client doesn't care what it is. The client cares what it does, when it does it, and why their family would care if they had it. The fear most agents carry into this conversation is that hospital indemnity will sound like an extra, a nice to have, a thing you tack on to the end of an appointment to squeeze out an extra commission. And if you position it that way, you're right. It does sound like an extra. The client says no, the agent feels embarrassed, and the product gets a bad reputation it doesn't deserve. Here's the reframe. Hospital indemnity is not an extra. It is a cash flow protection plan. Medicare and Medicare Supplement and Medicare Advantage all handle the medical bills. None of them handle what actually breaks families when someone goes into the hospital. The mortgage payment that's still due, the groceries the spouse still has to buy, the income the household loses when a working spouse takes off work to be at the hospital, the Uber rides home from physical therapy. That's what hospital indemnity covers, and that is not an extra. That is the difference between a stressful week and a financial emergency. Once you internalize that reframe, the conversation changes completely. You stop pitching a product and you start asking a question. The question is the entire technique, and we're going to walk through how to use it. Here is the master question. You say something like, "If you ended up in the hospital next week for 4 days, what would happen to the rest of your life while you were in there?" That's it. That's the entire opener. You ask the question, and then you stop talking. You let it sit. The client almost always pauses because no one has ever asked them that. Their brain starts working. They think about their spouse. They think about their bills. They think about the trip they were supposed to take. And whatever they say next is the answer to your sales conversation. You don't have to convince them of anything. They are doing the work for you. The reason this works is psychology. People don't buy from features. They buy from scenarios that feel real. The moment a client mentally pictures themselves in a hospital bed, their brain starts cataloging the dominoes that would fall. The mortgage, the car payment, the dog walker, the kid's tuition, the grandkid's birthday. Every one of those dominoes is a reason hospital indemnity exists. You didn't sell any of them. The scenario sold them. Your job is just to ask the question and listen. Now, the client will sometimes push back early. They'll say something like, "Well, my Medicare covers the hospital, doesn't it?" This is the moment most agents fumble. Don't fumble it. Here's how you respond. You say something like, "Yes, Medicare covers the medical bills, the doctors, the room, the procedures. What it doesn't cover is the cost of being away from the rest of your life. The mortgage doesn't pause when you're admitted. The groceries don't pause. Your spouse still has to drive to the hospital twice a day. Hospital indemnity isn't there for the hospital bill. It's there for everything the hospital bill ignores." Notice what just happened. You didn't argue with the client. You agreed with them. Yes, Medicare covers the medical bills. And then you redirected the conversation to the gap they hadn't thought about yet. That's the whole move. Agree, redirect, illustrate. There are 3 specific gaps you should be ready to illustrate when the conversation opens up. Memorize these. Gap 1, the cost share gap. Gap 2, the observation stay gap. Gap 3, the household income gap. Each one is a different domino, and each one lands with a different client. Your job is to listen for which one matters most to the person sitting in front of you. Gap 1, the cost share gap. For Medicare Advantage clients especially, every hospital admission triggers daily copays that stack up fast. $300 a day for the first 5 days isn't unusual on some plans. Hospital indemnity pays cash directly to the client to absorb that hit. The client uses the cash however they want. There's no network, no claim process for the hospital, no waiting on reimbursement. Money in the bank, the same week. Gap 2, the observation stay gap. This one is invisible to most clients and most agents. When someone goes to the hospital today, there's a real chance they get classified as observation status instead of inpatient. The hospital still bills for the stay. The client still occupies a bed for 2 or 3 days, but Medicare and most Medicare Advantage plans don't treat it the same as a true inpatient admission. The cost-share rules change. The skilled nursing follow-up coverage can disappear entirely. A well-built hospital indemnity plan pays the same daily benefit, whether the stay is observation or inpatient. That single feature has saved households thousands of dollars when they didn't even know they had a gap. Gap 3. The household income gap. This is the one that lands hardest with married clients, and it has nothing to do with medical bills. When one spouse is in the hospital, the other spouse is at the hospital too. They aren't at work. They aren't running their business. They aren't picking up shifts. The household loses income in that exact moment when expenses don't pause. Hospital indemnity cash replaces some of that lost income. No questions asked, no receipts required. Now, let me walk you through what this conversation actually sounds like with a real client. You're sitting with Mrs. Patel. She just enrolled in a Medicare Advantage plan. The application is signed. You take the bridge moment and you ask her the master question. If you ended up in the hospital next week for 4 days, what would happen to the rest of your life while you were in there? She pauses. She says, well, my husband would have to drive back and forth, and he doesn't drive at night anymore, so my daughter would probably take time off work to help, and she's a single mom, so that would be a problem. That's the gold. You didn't sell anything. She just told you exactly why hospital indemnity exists in her household. So you reflect it back to her. You say something like, it sounds like the part you're most worried about isn't the medical bills, it's what happens to the people around you while you're in there. What if I told you there's a plan that pays you cash, directly, for every day you're in the hospital, and you can use that money however you need? You could pay your daughter back for the time she takes off. You could cover a hotel for your husband if he doesn't want to drive. You could just put it in the bank as a cushion. Would that be worth a few minutes to look at? Now you've earned the right to show her a specific plan. Not before, after. The scenario built the case. Your only job was to ask the right question and listen well enough to hear the answer. Here's your action step. Today, write out the master question on an index card and tape it to your desk. If you ended up in the hospital next week for 4 days, what would happen to the rest of your life while you were in there? On your next 3 Medicare appointments, after the application is signed, ask that exact question. Do not pitch a plan. Do not name the product. Just ask the question and listen to what they say. 3 appointments from now, you'll have a completely different relationship with hospital indemnity, and your clients will have a completely different relationship with you.